It's been a vintage year for scandal. And today we celebrate it all as we look back on the funniest stories in sport in 2024. Welcome to The Upshot. My name's Jack Rivlin. Zach Sweeney-Lynch is here.
Hello, Jack.
He's in the hot seat.
In the hot seat for today.
Basically, there's one slightly better chair in the studio.
Yeah, the lighting's better. The
And look who's sitting in it again.
Yeah, it also catches his best side, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's actually not my best side.
Is it not?
It's actually my bad side.
All right, we'll just change the whole studio. For you.
Yeah, if
Again.
we could, that would be great.
And those dulcet tones you hear are coming from the mouth of Mr. George Cooper, who you haven't been on for a while, have you?
No, it's been a little while. Yeah.
We were trying
It's
to
good
remember.
be back.
Because you're quite heavily requested ever since you wrote your Wimbledon saucy fan fiction.
There's plenty more where that came from, let
Yeah.
me tell you.
Yeah, we actually, maybe if we have time, we could hear your darts fan fiction that you've prepared.
Yeah, it's a little side hustle of mine. So that's one for the Patreon subscribers
Yeah.
when that eventually does come out.
Actually, maybe in January, because we're doing a darts episode first week of January, so maybe after that episode you can read it out.
Yeah, with pleasure. Yeah, normally I'm on the other side of the cameras of the mic. But
Decks.
It's nice to be here to commemorate what has been a fantastic year all around for Upshot.
Delighted to have
Scandals.
you for it. So, should I just explain what we're doing here today? We're gonna sort of tell the story of the year through the major events in in our world, not the major events in the actual world, but just sort of the funniest and most scandalous episodes in 2024. And then at the end, I want you guys to tell me who your biggest hero, your biggest villain were. Also, we're gonna have the Poor Bastard Award for someone who's just suffered. And
There's a lot of that.
yeah, there is quite a lot of that. We like the Poor Bastards. And then there's the Dirty Dog, who I think that's self-explanatory, isn't it?
Yeah.
I guess as we go, if you think this one is particularly relevant to this category, we'll discuss it.
Yeah.
We're
We're going to have honourable mentions as well.
Yeah. What have you got in mind?
All will become apparent.
Ooh.
I don't know if
Is it
they've been shortlisted.
favourite characters from the erotic fiction?
Is Sue Barker. You can have an opportunity to talk about Sue Barker.
Oh,
And her
thank you.
lingering gaze on the ball boy's dainty hands. I think we should kick off. Zach, do you want to take us back to the 1st of Jan 2024?
Yes, so right to the start of the year. So as dawn broke on January the 1st, I think most of us were in one of two camps. Either you were marooned in a randomer's kitchen as a profusely sweating man shouted in your ear about Dogecoin and the time he took ayahuasca in 2012, or you were slipping on your Asics for a 10k run before diving into the sea and heading off for a wholesome lunch with your in-laws. And Sadio Mane was, of course, in the second camp. So just a few days into this year, he married Aisha Tambe, conveniently just after she turned 18.
There's a word for that, isn't there?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, apparently they met when she was 14, which...
Right. There's a word for that.
Yeah, I kind of don't want to delve too
Yeah.
much into that, really. But it was actually far from the most scandalous family affair from New Year's Day 2024. So that honour goes to former Scotland captain Stuart Hogg. And New Year's Day was a real day of extremes for Stu. So it began with him being awarded an MBE on the King's New Year's Honours list. And, you know, obviously that's a proud occasion for anyone. And to celebrate his new gong, Stu took his family and his new girlfriend, as the Sun have dubbed her, the world's sexiest jockey, Leona Mayer. He took her and his family to the races on New Year's Day. And, you know, obviously it's quite a boozy affair. And after a long day on the sauce, Stu ended up getting into a row with his brother back at their family home and swung a punch for him. But unfortunately, he missed entirely and ended up decking his own mother. At which point he panicked and fled the family home, leaving his new girlfriend and world's sexiest jockey, Leona Mayer, there with his family.
My God.
Oh, I'd like to know what the conversation was like afterwards. Just like mum's got a bag of peas on her face. Would you like another cup of tea? It's Earl Grey.
Tell me again about your OnlyFans.
Yeah. So what does it actually mean to be the world's sexiest jockey, Leona?
Have either of you guys been involved in any accidental family injuries on Christmas? Or
Well, I've told this story before on the pod about when my brother accidentally spiked my great aunt with weed cookies on Christmas Day.
Yeah.
A poisoning.
Apart from that, nothing violent.
My worst was sometimes if I've really been drinking a lot for consecutive days, I have a habit of sleepwalking, and I once sleepwalked into my parents' bedroom, and normally it's a loo trip that sparks it, and I got my knob out and was about to piss on my dad. Luckily, in my slumber, I'd turned the light on, as you do, you go to the loo, so it had woken them up. So he sort of like woke up just to see my knob hanging over him. Didn't wheel on him, fortunately.
I think that would have resulted in an injury for yourself.
Yeah, and that would have been a deliberate punch.
Yeah.
A friend of mine did that to I actually think it was over Christmas. He was staying with his girlfriend's family and went into her parents' bedrooms, like bollock naked in the middle of the night, and like switched on the light and was about to piss on them.
To his,
And I'm just like,
in-laws.
Yeah.
Oh, God. That's worse. I pissed in my first girlfriend's family laundry basket, which was quite bad. But I mean, it was getting washed anyway. Dirty laundry.
Yeah, I mean,
Should have been worse.
was that the argument that he
Yeah,
voiced as well?
and I
Like,
did have
someone could get her in the one. Yeah.
I actually think he listens to this pod, so hi, Will. Sorry about that.
Back to Sadio. So it was a bit of a digression already.
Yeah. Do you think either of them are going to
That's
make a count? I guess Mane's in for the Dirty Dog Award there, possibly. Although it's kind of sweet
sort of a
in its
different
own way.
category, but
Yeah. On the more like pantomime end of the villain spectrum, it's weird to think that in January, Jim Ratcliffe was only just getting his claws into Man United. He'd only just become a major shareholder. And it was in that month that he took his first tour of the club facilities, during which he decided to email all club staff branding their club museum crap. Which is actually foreshadowing his later decision to sack the club historian.
Cliff Butler.
Cliff should have seen it coming. Poor old Cliff. He also decided to email everyone complaining about the state of certain areas in the club. He singled out the club's IT department, branding their office a disgrace.
or was that just the state that they kept it in?
Yeah, literally. I think it was sort of, empty cans of Monster, discarded vapes, crispy tissues lying around. We can all imagine. Bit of like death metal on the speakers.
Just playing Age of Empires.
Sounds great, actually. That's my Christmas
It's
plan.
a lot like our studio, to be quite honest.
However, United had far bigger PR problems on their hands that month when Marcus Rashford embarked on a trip to Belfast for a fairly miserable bender in the end. It was obviously supposed to be a big night out, but it ended up with Marcus and his friends sitting in an empty pizza restaurant around a speaker, nibbling focaccia and swigging from the same tequila bottle. We know all this because...
Did he not also pick all of the tomatoes out of the focaccia?
Yeah, he ordered bruschetta.
Was it bruschetta? That was it.
And then he said, it arrived and he goes, I don't eat tomatoes with seeds in them, which I guess he just likes the sort of...
Just the fleshy
flesh.
bit.
Just ketchup normally.
These tomatoes.
Is that what they look like? Raw. So he didn't eat, so he just nibbled focaccia. And then he went on to a nightclub where he just got like harassed by fans. And then he went back to his hotel where he fell out with the girl who he was supposed to be getting with and got his bodyguards to chuck her out.
Oh.
And then he just passed out on his bed, flew back to Manchester and got bollocked by Eric Ten Hag. It was all quite miserable. Quite like an insight into how shit it is being a modern footballer because they're just too famous.
This is all like the NDA stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
NDAs immediately take the fun out of everything.
Yeah.
Especially as the
They
as far as the
promise
upsets
some fun, I guess, because there's something worth hiding.
Yeah.
But also...
I don't think there is anything really worth hiding though. It's just, I don't know, because...
pictures you don't want pics.
Yeah.
So someone told me recently about Trent Alexander-Arnold's party. I think someone DM'd us. They were working there and it was NDAs at the door and phones handed in. And then you're just like at the party. I think it was a pretty normal party. I don't think there was
That's what I mean.
anything-
I don't think anything particularly dramatic happens. It's just they just don't want any incriminating photos of them
I heard another one
on the hippie crack.
Well, funny you mentioned, like someone else mentioned to us this year about a major player, an England star, who apparently at a house party made everyone like turn off their phones, and maybe they did have to sign an NDA, and then he just sat in the corner on his own doing laughing gas balloons and just looking at his Instagram.
Oh,
so
that is a
sad.
bleak insight. That.
Once again, it's a sad world.
Also, imagine doing a NOS balloon and fucking looking at reels. Like, like what are you
Sounds
doing?
quite fun to be honest.
Yeah, do you need the reels?
I don't know.
Anyway, sure, Marcus's bender sounded pretty miserable, but England rugby star Billy Vunipola showed him how it's done this year in Mallorca. So Billy ended up in one of those sort of sticky floored nightclubs in Mallorca on his own, as far as I can tell. I reckon he probably got tempted in, you know, there's like a girl outside being like 2 cocktails for one, loads of girls in there, it's a real chilled out sexy vibe. In he went. 1 hour later he was being confronted by 9 policemen. So I think he got into a fight with the bar staff and they called the police, and the police are surrounding him. He's topless. And at some point, the police decide the only way to deal with Billy is to tase him. So they tase him once, and he just sort of like a sort of supervillain. He just like roars with laughter, soaks it up, and then they tase him again, and then he's sort of like staggering like a tranquilized wildebeest. And then it takes 9 coppers to tackle him to the ground. The police then dragged him to hospital, where he had to be strapped to a bed and sedated.
Oh my God, it really is like a wild animal. Isn't it?
I imagine the Mallorca, I guess it's like Magaluf or somewhere, they see quite a lot of action, but imagine getting the call from your, like, we need backup here, like, who is it? And then you get eyes on the person you're supposed to take down, you're like...
he's a big boy, I reckon he's 18 stone.
Oh, he's enormous, yeah. Hadn't he just signed for his new club at that point as well?
Yeah.
And I remember at the time we were discussing it on Extra Shot, you maybe Jax, you were like, I think, like, because there was talk about whether he was going to get sacked or not, and you were like, I don't know, if I'm the manager, I'd be licking my lips. Like, 9 men and 2 tranquilizers. I think we've got an absolute steal.
Do you reckon they have an extra powerful taser for guys like that?
Just crank
Like
it
a
up.
setting, yeah.
Or maybe a setting, or imagining like, you know, you get like super soakers. People would have the massive
The
ones.
backpack.
Yeah. You need to get one of those.
Yeah. It was the Vipertech 3000 taser, wasn't it? That was the...
Anyway, Billy referred to it all as an unfortunate misunderstanding, which I don't think he was ever charged with a crime, so I'm on his side. But both of those attempts at dry January were eclipsed by my absolute favourite, Claire Foden. So Claire, mother of Man City midfielder Phil Foden, she's been a bit of an upshot favourite for a couple of years now. Just her antics are good fun. We've always loved her. But this year she was hauled in front of a judge, charged with assault by beating after a vodka and tequila-fueled girls' night out in Tywyn in North Wales. That all sounds quite serious, assault by beating. You're wondering, what's the crime? Did she headbutt someone, swing a punch? Actually, her crime, the charge, was flicking a man's hat off his head, which Claire described in court as my party trick.
Can you describe your wind-up tactic as a party trick? I suppose you can.
Yeah, but is she saying that basically when I'm out on the piss, I like to just do it?
Yeah, I guess so.
How is that assault by beating?
Yeah.
I
mean, how is that a party trick?
Fair point. So basically, she was in Sunny's sports bar in Tywyn, and this tame gag got her booted out. So I think she was doing it a lot. Can see how it might become a bit of a nuisance. Anyway, so Claire then headed out on her own, where there were some police waiting, and they described her as stumbling with her speech slurred and her eyes glazed. And these police do-gooders approached her, and she told them to fuck off. Rightly so. Mind your own bloody business. Anyway, she was hauled up in court on drunk and disorderly charges as well. She later explained, I do not drink often, but when I do, I make up for time. I'm like an animal. I kicked off with the police officers. I was a bit of a bitch. I like how she's just like, sorry about that. I think that's how to handle it.
Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, she's not done anything too bad. You say, just like, is it a crime to be a nuisance?
Yeah, to be a bit of a pest. Wearing caps. I like it. It's good, clean fun.
Yeah.
Also, you were saying before about the police who get called out to taser Billy Vunipola, and their heart sinks, and then there's the ones back at the ranch who then get called as, we've got a woman flicking hats off heads at Sunny Sports Bar. It's like, I'll take this one.
Yeah.
And then they get there like, oh, not Claire again.
Yeah. Is it Claire?
Is it Claire?
Claire, we've talked about this. It's not a party trick.
As February drifted into March, and the first blossom was appearing on the trees here, over in Alaska they were still in the depths of winter, which signalled the arrival of sport's most celebrated event, the Iditarod dog sled race. So it's one of my favourite stories of the year. In case you're not familiar with the Iditarod, it's a 1,500-kilometer race through the Alaskan wilderness where mushers, who are the dog sled drivers, guide this sled that's pulled by 12 to 16 dogs.
They're huskies.
Husky sort of dogs, yeah. So the race, depending on how you're doing and what the weather conditions are like, it's between 8 and 15 days. And according to a description of the race, they often race through blizzards causing whiteout conditions, sub-zero temperatures and gale force winds, which can cause the wind chill to reach minus 73 degrees. So it's a pretty hardcore race. And 2024's race got off to an ominous start when the race leader, Jesse Holmes, arrived at the day one checkpoint and warned of a rogue moose on the loose on the course. So he told the press, "I had to punch a moose on the nose out there." But there was worse to come when the 5-time champion Dallas Seavey staggered across the finish line, drenched in blood, with a sinewy chunk of large intestine frozen to his coonskin cap. And the shell-shocked musher explained that this unruly moose had careered into his sled, injured his dogs, it was thrashing around in the ropes, and he was forced to shoot it with his handgun. So, according to the race rules, Dallas Seavey then had to gut the animal and leave its half-ton carcass in the snow for the race organisers to collect. So he did that and, went on his way. But that evening, just as he was settling in for the night in the foxhole he dug himself in the frozen Alaskan tundra, thawing chunks of frozen moose meat out on his benzene stove and peeling rancid strings of intestines out of his matted beard, there was a buzz on his satellite phone. And it was the race marshals who informed him that the moose was, in their words, not sufficiently gutted. And they slapped him with a 2-hour time penalty.
Oh, shit.
Also, another detail, this all took place on his birthday.
Oh, man.
It's got to be one of the shittest birthdays he's had.
There's no picture of him.
There's a bit.
It's just heard the news.
So face like a slapped arse. Just been
Still
told that he's
traumatised.
So
I just had to
cold.
shoot a moose, gut it, and now it's been not sufficient.
Why do you have to gut it?
I think it's like a sort of respect for nature kind of thing, that like if you're going to kill a moose, because if you leave the intestines in there, then the moose is not going to be edible, so it'll go
rancid,
rotten.
so
So I
it's
think
like
they come and collect
Who
the
eats it?
I guess
local
spectators.
people,
Right.
It's one of the perks of the ticket.
yeah.
You get any discarded moose carcasses, scraps.
Come your way.
Or the dogs, maybe.
Yeah, the dogs might, yeah.
Yeah,
That makes more sense to me.
it does sound a little bit like, there's like old English rules that like it's outdated. It's like still illegal to wear a suit of armour on a Wednesday and stuff like that. It sounds like somebody's got nicked for doing exactly
It's
that.
a technicality.
Yeah.
But yeah.
How common is a moose related?
I think not that common. Like there's obviously mooses about
At
in
large.
the Alaskan wilderness, but I think it happens from time to time.
Maybe
So
it's
they had to introduce regulations.
maybe like the ratings of the Iditarod were starting to dwindle. So a bit like how in like the Indian Cricket League they have like the power play.
Yeah.
They release a moose that they know to be rogue just to spice things up a little
Is
bit.
that a horse with antlers on it? No, definitely not.
they
See how the musher's gonna face the wolf round.
Did he end up winning?
he won the
Dallas
race.
Seavey.
Yeah.
Is he sort of like the Joey Chestnuts kind of Ronaldo Messi?
He's won 6 times now, which is a record.
So he's the Messi of dog sled.
Mushing.
Dog sled, yeah,
mushing.
dog sledding. On the subject of mad animals, a friend of mine was telling me recently that in California they have this like kind of algal bloom sort of thing that happens like once a year in the sea, and it turns the seals like a bit mental. And a friend of his was surfing in California, and apparently when you're surfing, if you see a seal in the water, you're not supposed to make eye contact with it. You just, because it like freaks them out and stuff. And anyway, when the seals have had this like algal bloom, their eyes go a bit red and they get really like angry and aggressive. So anyway, he's surfing, and the seal pops up with like red eyes, and he's just like, obviously it's a bit of a shock, and just like makes direct eye contact with it, and then the seal just disappears under the water and starts like ramming his
my
surfboard, like trying to attack him.
So something of a sort of like B-movie horror film.
Yeah. Seals.
Jaws,
attack.
like it's the stuff of folklores, mate.
It's kind of like the birds, isn't it? Yeah. Staying with animals for a bit, it has been a tough old year for dirty dogs. So I guess probably the most famous pervy scandal concerned Jermaine Genius, who in hindsight, he really fumbled the match of the day gig because that was his for the taking. But unfortunately, Genius is a spent force after his pervy DMs to makeup artists on the One show were
There's something
brought
about
to
it
our
being on the
attention.
One show that just makes it way more funny.
Television's
Like
most
the most wholesome show.
Yeah, I think you said on Extra Shot at the time, it's like Genius has just been talking to someone who's grown the biggest courgette in Britain, like an EastEnders star who's taught her Chihuahua to dance, just immediately walks off set and starts pinging out really pervy messages to the makeup team.
You thought that courgette was big.
Should see my mirror.
Yeah, poor old Genius. Did also learn a good fact about Jermaine Genius at the time, which is his dad changed the spelling of their surname. So Genius was spelled with a G, but he wanted his initials to be DJ so much that he changed the family surname.
Do you think that's why he called Jermaine Genius Jermaine as well, to make it JJ? 'Cause
Well,
JJ
he does get called JJ. That is
yeah.
his main nickname, isn't
It's
it?
also quite. If you've got DJ and JJ,
Yeah, BJ, obviously, supposed to go. Probably quite glad he didn't do that. Anyway, he wasn't the only dirty dog in trouble. Carl Walker's mistress dragged him over hot coals in front of a judge, and he's now paying her an agreed sum every month. But one man ran the gauntlet of firing out thirsty messages and lived to tell the tale this year, and that is Red Bull boss Christian Horner. So I think it was the eve of the F1 season. We were sort of 2 weeks off the first Grand Prix in Bahrain when news broke that Horner had been accused of inappropriate behaviour. No one really knew what had gone on, but Red Bull quite quickly said, we've done an investigation and he's been cleared of any wrongdoing. And then journalist Jenna Fryer tweeted, "A Google Drive containing all the Christian Horner evidence has just been emailed from an anonymous account to hundreds of journalists."
unfortunately, we didn't make the cut, but we did receive it through other sources.
Yeah, it took a while for the dossier to wash up on these shores.
kept on refreshing the email. So it's going to come through
Any minute now.
yeah.
Oh, I would have loved to have seen you guys on the BCC. Just, hello at Upshot Town.
Yeah, I think we actually picked it up in the Upshot WhatsApp group.
Yeah.
Is where it ended up. Anyway, so there were 79 images in this dossier. Most of them were just screenshots of WhatsApp conversations between Christian and an assistant who worked at Red Bull. I would say in Christian's defense that none of it was like super bad. It was quite embarrassing. I'd say that it all had the flavour of a 14-year-old who's desperately trying to flirt, but his phone credit is running out, so he needs to sort of escalate things quite quickly. Otherwise, he's going to have to hit the computer. Probably the most damaging messages are him confessing to finishing himself off in the bathroom on a flight to Dubai after this employee, quote, got me out of control. But it's a lot of just like him saying stuff like this to her and her just being a bit like, oh right, haha. There's also a bit where he's made like several missed calls to her, and then he explains the reason he was calling is wanted you to hear the fireball, which I presume is a term for orgasm. Fireball.
Is that because he's got red hair? Or maybe he's got fireball in his head because of his experiences with Jerry, maybe? I don't know.
Well, because she's a fiery redhead, or was about 20 years ago.
This is mere speculation.
Yeah. I think we do see the possible consequences of the fireball in file number 76. Sounds like we're in court. So there's this sort of blurry picture of an appendage. It could be a knob, it could be a finger. I think it's probably a finger.
I think it looks like a finger,
But it's quite slimy.
yeah.
I think there's something on it.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that.
But it could be nothing.
Yeah.
Hopefully. It's also just a lot of like him asking her for photos. He's got a bit of a fixation on her Spanx underwear. And just like quite a lot of her just being like, I don't think Jerry would want you to be asking me this. The vibe I got from it all is that like, I don't know if maybe they'd got off or not, but he'd sort of wanted to continue it, and it was just sort of like very clumsy flirting, which was being sort of like politely rebuffed. I should say that obviously Red Bull had an investigation. They cleared him. I think then there was a further investigation where she took legal action against Red Bull. And again, like no action was taken. Christian Horner's still in his job. So I don't think this was a case of, certainly no crime was committed. And I don't think that it was a case of even him like breaking employment law, but it was quite funny.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine it didn't go down too well with his wife. But...
Yeah. It is weird, like every year that we've done the upshot, obviously we've been doing the newsletter for a few years, there are like 2 or 3 sexting scandals. They're normally unsolicited dick pics or just like pervy messages.
It's kind of exciting who's going to be next year.
My favourite is still the Michael Owen ones, where he's like still his same like slightly boring, arrogant self. He's like, come on, I've got a long, boring trip to London, fire him through. And then she sends pictures and he goes, nice boobs, fakies?
Tremendous, by the way.
Tremendous, by the way. And then she goes, what is it that attracted you to me? And he goes, your past, your present, your photos with your tits out. Like, Michael, come on, be a bit romantic. Yeah.
So over in the US, TV execs have been cashing in on the soccer fever since Lionel Messi's arrival at Inter Miami. And the dating show Love Undercover was no different. So basically the concept of this show is that famous athletes pose as regular schmucks and woo Californian women. So in the blurb for this show, they describe them as athletes who are megastars with extreme wealth, adoring fans and lavish lifestyles. But unfortunately, Love Undercover's budget didn't quite stretch to the likes of Messi, so they instead roped in Ryan Babel and Jamie O'Hara. So Jamie, as part of this show, he was posing as a bloke who works in ad sales, and he went on a few dates with this lovely Californian woman until the big reveal where he possibly overplayed his hand a little bit.
So I'm actually a really famous soccer player from England. And I have one of the biggest radio shows in Europe.
Shut the up. Shut the fuck up. You fully...
I fully lied to you.
Yeah, this is a great start. So, cheers to that. I gotta go.
He's going to be slightly disappointed when she realises that amounts to 34 games for Spurs and co-hosting the sports bar with Jason Cundy.
He's like, you know Jason Cundy, yeah? I'm his co-host.
Obviously, you'll remember my 14 games on loan at Wolves in 2011. You can just imagine her being like, so it must be mad. Like you must hardly be able to leave your house without being mobbed by fans. She's just like,
yep.
yeah, pretty much. It's, yeah.
Don't come and visit. I'll come to you. I'll meet you in LA. All right, going up the superstar scale quite a lot. It's been a bit of a nothing year for Neymar. He spent most of it getting injured, recovering, getting injured again, which means he's been holed up in his gated compound in Saudi, feasting on grapes and Insta hotties fed to him by his entourage of yes men. But he did, in May, he made a brief return to the Al Hilal dressing room. And, you know, having lived this gilded existence, he probably wasn't ready for the insolence of his teammate, Renan Lodi. So Lodi's a Brazilian left back, and, you know, he was very excited to be sharing a dressing room with his compatriot. And he decided to welcome Neymar back and break the ice a bit with a sort of quite tame playground gag. He tied Neymar's shoelaces together, and he even like posted a photo of himself like with a cheeky grin doing it. Neymar's not even wearing the shoes. It's all quite gentle stuff. And, you know, then he sort of sat back and waited, wondering like, what will Neymar hit him back with? You know, is he going to cling film the toilet seat? Is he going to pull down Renan's shorts in front of the Crown Prince? Maybe glue a Swarovski crystal to the dressing room floor? In the end, Neymar went for a slightly different sort of gag. He went out to the car park and pulled out a flick knife and slashed the tyres of Renan's car. Feels like an overreaction.
Yeah. The video of him doing it is so great.
Yeah, he obviously posted
He's just
a video.
like cackling.
He does every single tyre. I think he just stabs it.
It costs him about $4,000 to replace that.
Yeah, or worse, he doesn't realise and drives off. Slashing his compatriot's tyres wasn't the only social norm Neymar slightly misjudged this year. So there was a clip posted online of his Neymar and his girlfriend at the time were having a birthday party to celebrate their daughter. She was turning 6 months old, and it was all like quite sweet family scenes. And there's a moment where the whole family's singing happy birthday to their daughter, and the girlfriend's on one side and Neymar's on the other side. And as they sing, he just peels away briefly to quickly place a bet in a game of online poker on his phone. Just love that he's got that on the go throughout the party.
Going back to the practical jokes, have you ever been on the receiving end of a practical joke that was like way disproportionate to?
I did my sister last Christmas pretty dirty. I got a fake scratch card. And
Was it in her stocking?
No, so we like played this game where I won't explain the entire concept of the game, but she ended up with this envelope which had a scratch card in it. She opened it up and was like, "Oh, lovely scratch card! Like that's fun," and like scratched it off. And we all sat around in like a big circle. There were probably like 15, like my uncle and aunt and stuff like that. And I was on the other side of the circle, just seeing her scratch it off, and her face just be like kind of light up and like looking around quietly and just carry on scratching. And then she sort of looked up and turned to my uncle who sat next to her and was like, I think I've won. And he looked at it and was like, yeah, I think you have won. It just like, it got passed around the circle and everyone's like, well, I mean, somebody has to win, I guess. I never thought this would happen, and she was like, how much have you won? It's like 500 grand. And it's like, oh my God. And I was sitting on the other side of the circle, like, when am I going to break this? And I just like kept it going. And I was like, I got the scratch. Like, come on, like we're gonna split it, right? Like we've got, like, I got this. And she was like, no, we're not splitting it. This is my scratch card. And then she was like, yeah, I mean, I was looking at this house buy online. Like maybe I'll finally be able to afford it. And eventually I was like, I've got to tell her. I was like, have you checked the small print on that? And she like read the back and it said something like, it was called the Rational Lottery.
Doesn't even mean anything. And it was like, you have a zero chance of winning.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's like the holder of this scratch card is not entitled to 500,000.
Would you done if in that moment she like phoned her boss and was like, you can stick your job up your ass. I'm fucking leaving you and all. See you later, cocksuckers. I'm going to Mexico.
You're like, no, don't call it now.
Yeah. Punched my mum in the face. She just walked out.
How did she take it when you...
She actually took it pretty well, to be fair.
She was like, oh, you got me.
Yeah.
Shit.
That is so good.
Yeah, it was quite cool.
I'm definitely doing that to my sister.
Yeah, they're quite plausible, the ones you had.
They look really good.
The company also sell fake parking tickets, which is sort of the inverse joke. Not as funny.
Yeah, you give someone a nice little treat.
Yeah,
when
you don't owe the council 65 quid. I guess it's a nicer ending.
It's just like so annoying. You're like, all right.
Yeah, great.
Yeah.
Oh, very good.
The only Christmas prank I ever did, me and my sister hid all the bog roll once, and my dad was just walking, desperate for a shit, walking around the house holding his arse, going, give it back! It was quite funny.
So obviously it was the Euros this summer, and somehow like England got to the final, but my memory of it is still so miserable. Like, it was just, they were just shit.
Some good goals.
Few good goals, I guess. The semi-final was good.
Yeah, we had a good time.
We had a great time in Dortmund.
One of the best days of my life, I reckon.
Agreed. Maybe I take that back. No, it was great. It was a great day. One of my favourite moments, though, was when the England team rocked up to their hotel and discovered that it operated a traditional German policy of nudity in the sauna and spa area. And there was an awkward showdown in the reception as Cole Palmer shuddered at the prospect of Dean Henderson's unkempt pubic bush molting onto the slats beside him. The hotel did eventually back down, but one man who was seemingly completely shameless is Geoff Hurst. So Geoff is the last surviving member of England's 1966 World Cup win, the hat-trick hero as well. So Sky had pulled off a bit of a coup when they bagged an interview with him on the day of the final. And, you know, it started off a little bit weird when Jeff opened the interview by mentioning his recent and very interesting appearance in a Budweiser advert. And it didn't stop there.
Thank you so much for being with us. Just firstly, give us a sense of what you're up to today.
Oh, up to really supporting England. I've just finished off an advert for Budweiser, which has been very interesting. And I think the great thing about supporting England is you can support England from all over the country, not just at the games, but in pubs and bars, just enjoying a nice glass of Budweiser. So
I don't know, for example, maybe a Budweiser. Top of my head.
Oh, so good.
So funny. Completely shameless.
Do you think in his head that was really subtle as well? He's like, I think I got away with that. Do you reckon they were like, we'll give you $5,000 if you can just mention us?
No, you know what? I think that he just thought we had to do that. I don't think they would have asked him to do that. I think
He was just so in the zone after doing the Budweiser ad. There was, yeah.
And they're like, thank you, Jeff Hurst. Yeah, we'll meet up for a Budweiser sometime soon. Just at the end, just does a cheers with the can.
I have to say though, he looks great for an 82-year-old.
Yeah, he does.
Yeah.
And I tell you what,
Must be all the Budweiser.
Yeah. I do really feel like a Budweiser now. Just returning to that story about Cole Palmer shuddering in the sauna. Was the rule that you had to be naked?
I think they are in those German saunas.
Those in the German saunas. Yeah,
You lived in Joe. Did you ever do
it's
them?
a hygiene thing, really, because I feel like sweating into your shorts and then sat on the wooden slats.
Whereas a ball bag is cleaner.
Yeah,
And a bum
I suppose
hole.
the idea is that you're washing off every time
I
you go
think
in
you bring
and out,
your towel in. You can sit on your towel. I don't really know.
For me,
I
I
think
feel like
they just like getting their kit off, really.
yeah, I think
It's
it is.
not a problem. Everyone's doing
Yeah,
this.
it's something I do that's
Born
like-
naked.
like enforced.
Yeah.
I'm kind of with them, as you know. I like that in the dressing rooms at the gym.
I went to Meyerhofen with a few mates, and the same deal in Austria. But yeah, it was like they told us during the hotel briefing. I would say alarmingly soon. They was like, yeah, you can use the sauna downstairs, no pants.
If I see you in pants, I will complain.
Yeah, they were like, so here's your room key. You'll be on floor 256. Bar at the front, sauna downstairs, no pants.
Show me your dick.
It was literally like that.
If I could just quickly see your dick.
If I see you in pants, you will be gone. Yeah, they absolutely love it.
Yeah, because we went to a sauna the other night for our Christmas party.
The Banya Boys.
The Banya Boys.
As
yeah.
they
And
insist on
I
calling
would have thought
themselves.
the Russians were quite big on the nudity, but it was
It was clothed.
we were encouraged to keep our clothes on.
It was maybe that
You did try and bend the rules.
Tried to let my flag fly for a bit, but to no avail. Maybe there is a men's only day.
maybe that.
Maybe that's
Maybe then.
Yeah.
That's the one we're going to,
Yeah.
Jack, in January.
You're going on your own. Mate. Now, this has been true for the past 250 years, but it's been a rough year for the people of France. It's a beautiful country, but there is always just the faint air of menace whenever you step off the Eurostar. So as the Olympics rolled into Paris, locals were hoping for something to finally lift the spirits. There was just one nagging issue hanging over the games, though. The fact that the River Seine was riddled with human shit. So this was a big deal because obviously they were using the river for the triathlon, but also the politicians had kind of argued this would be like a big legacy of the games, that locals would just be able to swim in the river afterwards. And they spent $1.5 billion trying to clean it. The mayor, Anne Hidalgo, she did keep her promise to swim in the river ahead of the games. Although Emmanuel Macron made the same promise, and to my knowledge, he never had a dip. Anyway, the games came around. There was a postponement because there was too much shit in the water. But the athletes did eventually take to the sewage-infested torrents. And then 2 of them fell ill. And then 6 more. And by the end of the games, Olympic officials estimated that 10% of the athletes who got in the Seine experienced gastrointestinal infections. So yeah, pretty high hit rate. Several of them were hospitalised. One of them said, I felt and saw things we shouldn't think about too much after swimming in the river.
So let's come back from Vietnam.
Yeah. You weren't there, man. But as he watched his fellow athletes getting their stomachs pumped at the Pitié-Salpêtrière Hospital, America's Seth Ryder came up with an ingenious solution to the problem. He told BBC Sport, "We know there's going to be some E. coli exposure, so I just tried to increase my E. coli threshold by exposing myself to a bit of E. coli in my day-to-day life." And the interviewer was like, "Okay, like what?" "Just little things throughout your day, like not washing your hands after you go to the bathroom and stuff like this." Sounds a lot like he spent the week sort of priming the immune system by licking toilet seats, sniffing dog turds in the Bois de Boulogne. It's sort of like the medieval vaccine though thing, isn't it? Like there's probably it's probably is accurate. I don't know. He was not one of the guys hospitalised. He actually wasn't the only athlete at the Paris Games resorting to old-fashioned solutions to ensure he could compete. Matt Dawson, the Australian hockey star, was hailed for his bravery when he got injured before the games, and the only way he could still come and compete was to amputate part of his finger. So he cut off like the tip of his, I think it was his ring finger, which removed an injury and allowed him to hold his hockey stick. Unfortunately, he was knocked out in the quarterfinals. So he flew back to Canberra without a medal and unable to wipe his own arse. You'd want a medal from that situation.
Yeah, brutal.
Poor fella. Now, most players would celebrate winning a 50th cap for their country by thanking the fans and coaches, maybe arranging for their parents to come into the dressing room after the game. But for Dutch winger Quincy Promes, his 50th cap for the Netherlands sparked an unlikely new career change: drug smuggling. We've talked about Quincy a lot this year. He was convicted of sneaking off to Antwerp to crack open shipping containers filled with 1,360 kilos of cocaine in them. So that's a street value of 65 million. And it's actually quite interesting how they did it. They hid the cocaine in a shipment of sea salt coming from Brazil to Belgium. So Quincy was caught investing 200 grand into this scheme. And apparently he was actually organised in arranging the shipment. So he got his hands dirty. Unfortunately, the Dutch police got wise to this and he was convicted. He also got an 18-month jail sentence after getting in a row with his cousin at a family barbecue and stabbing the bloke in the leg. Which I always picture, it's like with the, the thing that you like skewer sausages with the barbecue until then it's just like, anyway, all quite mental. Fortunately for Quincy, he was tried in his absence because he's been living in Russia for the last few years, banging him in for Spartak Moscow. He's actually been really prolific. I think he was top scorer in the Russian league.
And they just don't mind at all about the cocaine trafficking charges.
I don't really mind about much.
It begs the question, I'm presumably he's on a fair whack in Russia or where he was at before. Like, why would you even think about it? Like, you must have more money that you could possibly.
65 mil. It's quite.
It's a bit weird, but it seems to be a bit of a thing in Dutch football because Ronnie Stam got done this year for drug smuggling as well. Wigan's FA Cup hero, I think he was. Hero might be stretching it a bit there. He was in the squad. I don't know. I guess it's a bit like this French football thing of like, you can't leave your old mates behind.
Yeah, perhaps.
Anyway, Quincy was safely in Russia. He could never return to the Netherlands because he would have to go and serve like an 8 stretch in the slammer. But all he had to do was stay in Russia and just not get extradited. So, unfortunately, this year, that simple plan fell apart when Spartak Moscow took the squad to Dubai for some warm weather training. And again, all Quincy had to do was just keep his head down, just don't get extradited. Unfortunately, during the 3-day trip, he managed to get himself involved in a hit and run. And on the way home, he was arrested at Dubai's airport for the crime. Ended up being chucked in the infamous Al Anwar prison, awaiting extradition, and Spartak Moscow ripped up his contract. So there was like a brief moment where apparently a high-ranking official in Russian politics had secured his release. But that then fell through, and Spartak and Russia just washed their hands at Quincy.
You would think that high-ranking officials in Russia have more important things to be getting on with.
Like winning a war. Getting those sanctions
releasing
lifted.
a cocaine trafficking footballer from
Getting
Dubai.
hold of some North Korean regiments. Anyway, it didn't work out for Quincy. Perhaps that's why. He was bailed in Dubai. He's been appealing his extradition there. And, at that point, I guess he had a lot of time on his hands. But it was still a bit of a shock when Quincy popped up in a corporate 7-a-side tournament, playing as the ringer for an office rental firm. So we had a message from Simon in Dubai, who faced Quincy in the final. And apparently there'd been a lot of talk about this ringer, that he was really good. And Simon said, to be fair, he was absolutely class. Gave him as much shithousery as possible, but he didn't react. Instead, he just kept banging in goals. And then this office firm, iSpace, then posted all these photos just being like, yeah, thanks Quincy Promes for winning us the tournament. All quite shameless. I don't know, I thought maybe Quincy had gone for another career change and was going straight, but he then
He's
signed...
going corporate.
Yeah, fine. It's the next move, isn't it? Office rentals. But then he signed for a team in the UAE second tier called FC United, playing the famous green and gold, I presume.
FC United.
Yeah. So anyway, he's now doing that. And
Fair play.
Yeah.
Yet to be extradited. But
He's done pretty well considering the charges he's up against to still be forging out a professional football career.
He's no criminal mastermind, is he, Quincy? Like the rules are quite simple, and he just seems to cock it up.
Yeah, it's crazy. He's sort of been on the run. Like, would you say that's accurate? Or
I guess at one point he was. Yeah.
Yeah.
There were like extradition, like
yeah,
the
like,
Netherlands were trying to get him extradited from Russia.
Surely
and
he's still,
Dubai.
had a
surely
red
he is
notice
still
after.
now.
Yeah, I think he's still appealing the extradition from Dubai, so it still
Okay.
might happen.
it's a mad story.
How come he, like, most people get banged up in Dubai for like having a fucking sick, don't they? Like, not quite that, but like people do like 5 years for like smoking a spliff and stuff. How's he sort of just bagging him in for eye space?
I don't know. It's the lengths that they'll go to sports wash.
So it has been an absolutely wild year for refereeing. We obviously had David Coote, who was sacked by the Premier League after slagging off Jurgen Klopp while on a 7 a.m. bender, and then also filming himself snorting lines of bugle at the Euros. There was Elif Karsalan, the female Turkish ref who was suspended after a sex tape emerged of her shagging the 61-year-old head referee inspector at the Turkish FA. She came out and denied that it was real. She said that it was AI. And he came out and said it was real, possibly because he wants his mates to think it's real.
Yeah, I think it is fake looking at it.
Yeah, I think it's fake.
It's also
too.
just too good to be true, like shagging the referee's chief on video.
Yeah. Most recently, we had the Mexican ref who failed to turn up to a match and blamed it on medical circumstances, which, it happened and everyone kind of moved on from this until his colleague spilled the beans and claimed that in fact he had invited an escort to his hotel the night before the game who had drugged him and robbed him, and he'd then woken up on the afternoon of the match having missed it entirely.
It's a tough way to go.
Yeah. But my favourite ref story of the year involved some good old accusations of crookedness. So in October, the former La Liga referee Pajares Paz was being interviewed on the Spanish football show El Chiringuito when the interview was interrupted by a whistling sound.
Totalmente de acuerdo.
So he's frantically shushing this whistling off screen, and eventually he owns up that it is his pet parrot who is whistling a popular Real Madrid anthem. So he actually claimed that there's another La Liga referee whose parrot replies cabron, which means bastards, anytime he hears the word Barcelona.
So is the idea that Real Madrid have a flock of sympathetic parrots influencing refs?
I mean, Barcelona have been complaining for years that refs favour Real Madrid, and this is some real ammunition.
They
for
was
them.
wondering how they did it.
Yeah.
Smoking gun.
You know how like the Nazis were like trying to develop like some really out there weaponry, sort of like nuclear mutants and stuff. This is like Real Madrid's big scheme, breeding parrots and giving them to refs. The weird thing is when I watched that, I was like, it's got to be a piss take, but seemingly not.
I don't know, yeah.
I think it's real.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. It's weird that not even a flock of sympathetic parrots could secure Real Madrid the prize they craved most, the Ballon d'Or. That was a truly childish moment from them when I guess everyone was so convinced Vinny Jr. was going to win the Ballon d'Or, and then apparently Man City were the ones who found out that Rodri had won it, and someone at, I think like the sporting director at Man City rang his opposite number at Real Madrid to break the news to them. That's how Real Madrid found out. I just love it.
Surely you'd think they'd want to see their faces at the ceremony.
Yeah, you're
Face
right.
drop.
But maybe maybe
It's
you couldn't
he wanted
help it.
he wanted to have the joy of.
Yeah, just thought I'd let you know, mate. I'm sure you've spoken to them too. Yeah. Real Madrid did turn it into an almighty strop. So everyone connected with Real Madrid boycotted the ceremony, and they complained about Ballon d'Or UEFA as if there was some like European conspiracy against a Brazilian player. I did feel quite sorry for Vinny because apparently, so first of all, Real Madrid had lost 4-0 to Barcelona the Sunday before. And apparently that night he'd already organised a party with friends to celebrate the fact he was going to win the Ballon d'Or. And so he'd had this like all night sesh. And as dawn was breaking and like, you know, they're all sort of like crowded around the table, you're feeling pretty gribbly by that point of the night. Vinny Jr. was informed that he had not won the Ballon d'Or.
Hadn't he also already got commemorative Rolex watches for all of his teammates?
23 Rolexes he bought.
Like Ballon d'Or engraved on the back.
Yeah, picturing when the final person left the afters and he was just in the room with the Rolex. He was just like, fuck this. Oh dear. Yeah, it was a tough way to go, but very, very funny. So yeah, I mean that was the year, really,
been a
wasn't it?
whirlwind.
2024.
Yeah.
It has. Obviously, there are 1,000 stories we couldn't include. We're going to do a sort of more lengthy awards for the year in our newsletter. So sign up for that at upshot.email. I'll put a link in the show notes. But I think we should just do a very brief awards as discussed at the start. What I want you guys to do is, first of all, can you give me your dirtiest dog of the year? So, I mean, you've got Genus, Horner, Carl Walker, Sadio Mane.
Yeah.
I think I'm going Mane personally.
Yeah.
Kyle Walker's got form in this area. He's always there or thereabouts, isn't he, in this conversation? But I think for me, just because it's such a far cry from the squeaky clean image that he'd constantly presented himself, and just the caliber of the fall from grace and the fact that he shot himself in the foot with this match of the day gig, I think it's got to be JJ for me. Jermaine Genius.
I'm with you, yeah. Just the audacity to come off set having interviewed the guy who's grown the largest marrow and then fire out a dick pic is, yeah. It's
I'm
pretty funny.
going Sadio Mane. Doesn't need any explanation. I'd rather we didn't talk about it. All right, next up is the Poor Bastard Award for the person who suffered the most.
It's a strong category this year.
Yeah, shall I give you a few options? You've got the guy who cut his own finger off and then didn't win gold. You've got Dallas CV who inadequately gutted his moose during the Iditarod. You've got the guy whose tyres Neymar slashed. You've got the woman who had to date Jamie O'Hara. That's what I mean.
For me, the poor bastard of the year has got to be David Coote.
Okay, yeah.
He bought. I know it's entirely bought on himself, but I just think the guy's been done like an absolute kipper. And although it's his own making, you can't help but feel for the guy.
Yeah, and we look forward to welcoming him on to the sofa for a pod.
What to give
if he's
to give-
available.
to give.
What is he doing next? I think pods, you could see it.
I would like just to hear which other managers he thinks are fucking cunts.
Yeah, you could just really lean into that now
Yeah,
and just be
that would be
like,
great.
the one who's just honest.
Spill everything.
Yeah.
Dallas CV for me.
I was going to say that too.
Well,
Yeah.
you can say it. I'm just picturing him in his like handmade igloo, just a hole in the ground, just digging in the tundra with his hands. Just like,
In my mind, I don't know why, I picture him like going full Luke Skywalker and burrowing himself within the
moose
disemboweled carcass in order to keep warm.
it's probably the warmest thing he's got.
Just to be different, then I'll go for Cole Palmer just for the poor moment where he was in the hotel lobby, picturing himself having to like slip in beside a butt naked Dean Henderson and Jordan Pickford in the sauna.
You know why Dean Henderson's catching straight. I'm sorry, can I just have one nomination for Poor Bastard? Technically, it happened last year, but Zach's sister, who thought she'd won £500,000.
On a scratchy.
Yeah, honourable.
I think she's
honourable
probably
winner.
won it. I know who the villain is, Zach. Villain of the year is Zachary Sweeney Lynch.
I'll take it.
Some other possible villains, however, Stuart Hogg for punching his own mum by accident. I think Claire Foden for knocking someone's hat off. That could be hero for me.
I'd actually go for Stuart Hogg to do some other nasty things this year, which qualify him for that category.
We have not mentioned them.
But
I know who's the villain of the year. Sir Jim Ratcliffe.
Oh, yeah.
For
that's
his-
good.
yeah, good.
The relentless swing of his
Yeah.
scythe knows no bounds.
Yeah.
Cliff Butler actually is another candidate for Poor Bastard of the Year, the club historian of 40 years.
Long-serving club historian. Yeah.
But yeah, I'm going for Sir Jim Ratcliffe as the bastard. Obviously, you spoke about it on Extra Shot this week.
Yeah.
The M&S vouchers, canning the Christmas party. Yeah,
the list is endless.
For me, it's Ratcliffe.
Yeah, that's nice. I'll probably give Quincy Promes in a sort of traditional villain role. Of just-
Yeah. He's the pantomime.
Yeah, done some crimes, hasn't he? All right, finally, I'd like your hero of the year. I'm going to nominate Sir Jeff Hurst for his groundbreaking work while sipping on a delicious cold glass of Budweiser.
If he was at the Edinburgh Festival, he would be winning. That they call it the Cunning Stunt Award, don't they, for the publicity stunt of the festival, and he'd be getting that.
It is kind of, it's so clumsy that it's actually kind of genius because it's getting coverage in itself.
Yeah,
done.
It's fantastic.
I would like to put forward Seth Ryder, the triathlete who forwarded humanity's understanding of the vaccination process by
Sniffing toilet seats.
sniffing toilet seats and not washing his hands when he goes for a shit.
For me, I think the hero of the year has got to be the valiant, the tenacious, the just powerhouse that is Billy Vunipola for taking 2 tasers and 9 Mallorcan police out whilst flailing around like a boated tuna.
That's accurate. It's the fact he takes the first one and laughs.
Yeah. It's just, I mean,
He's like, harder.
yeah. What a guy. Anyone who can take 2 Vipertech 3000s and live to tell the tale is a hero in my book.
Can be arranged. We'll get some some trial models.
I mean, you said you wanted to vary up your content.
To be fair, I've seen the way you take a small electric shock from the microphone. You'll know Billy Vunipola. Squealer, believe is the term in Vipertech HQ for a lad like you.
Very
last
true.
2 minutes in Mallorca.
For the listeners' benefit, we get a lot of static in the studio,
Yeah.
and I do get a series of very small electric shocks.
You seem
which,
to be more prone to them than others.
maybe I just make a bigger deal out of them. You guys just take them.
You haven't got like an electric tag on your ankle or something that we don't know about.
Pacemaker.
All right, well, what a year it has been. I look forward to many more similar tales next year. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks, George.
No, pleasure's been all mine. What year it's been. Look forward to the next
Yeah,
one.
we're going to have you more often next year.
Fantastic.
That's my resolution. Zach, thanks a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a great year. Looking forward to lots more.
Yeah, and thank you to everyone who's listened this year. We really appreciate it. Doing this as a job is an absolute gift. I can't believe it's true. So thank you all. Thanks to everyone who came to our live shows. Thanks to everyone who has shared the upshot with their friends. Please do that more. Stick it in your WhatsApp groups. Happy Christmas. Thanks a lot for listening.